Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really powerful parable that exposes this dangerous, almost invisible gap between dreaming of success and, well, actually doing the work to get there. I mean, we've all been there, right? Staring at our grand plans, knowing exactly what needs to be done, yet somehow finding ourselves completely frozen. This Explainer is going to decode a story that brilliantly visualizes that exact struggle, and it's going to show you exactly how our best intentions end up getting hijacked. So let me ask you something directly. Have you ever been incredibly ambitious, but kind of lazy? You desperately want to achieve something big, like, say, finally learning a new language or actually using that expensive gym membership you bought back in January. But when it's literally time to put your shoes on and act, you just freeze up. You tell yourself, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. It is such a universal feeling. We absolutely love the idea of the destination, but we strongly resist the daily friction of the journey. If you've ever felt this paralyzing disconnect between your high ambitions and your actual daily habits, or honestly, if you've ever just spent an hour doom scrolling when you definitely meant to be working, this story is going to completely reframe how you look at your life.
All right, let's dive right into section 1, the trap of tomorrow.
To really understand this trap, we need to look at a young villager named Amir. And I want you to notice the stark, almost comical contrast between his dreams and his reality. On one hand, you've got Amir's dreams. He was constantly telling his friends that one day he was going to be the absolute richest farmer in the village. He pictured this massive field shining golden with crops and a life where people would come to him for wisdom. He wanted to be deeply respected. And honestly, everyone actually admired his ambition. But then, you look at his reality. When the sun came up and all the other farmers headed out to the fields, Amir, he just stayed in bed. When the village men were sweating out there under the hot sun, Amir was sitting in the cool shade just chatting away about his big dreams. When the women were hauling heavy water from the well, Amir would wave them off and say he'd help out later. So it was all big plans, but absolutely zero action.
And that brings us to Amir's incredibly dangerous catchphrase. His go-to line, "I will start tomorrow." He loved imagining success, but he completely despised the hard work required to actually get it. Well, one evening, Amir's uncle, who was this older, very wise farmer, came by for a visit. He took one look out at Amir's completely empty field. The soil there was incredibly rich, literally packed with potential, but not a single thing was growing. So when his uncle pointed out that he was just looking at a patch of dry dirt instead of these famous golden crops, Amir just kind of laughed it off. He used his favorite excuse. "Uncle, don't worry about it. I will start tomorrow. Just wait and see." Which leads us perfectly into section 2, the 2 magic seeds. Now, this wise old uncle had heard the word tomorrow entirely too many times from Amir. So he decided to teach him a profound, unforgettable lesson. He pulls out these 2 magical seeds that are going to determine Amir's entire future. He hands Amir the first one, the ambition seed. He looks right at him and says, "If you plant this and you water it every single day, it's going to grow into a massive tree that gives you fruit, shade, and wealth. But here is the crucial requirement you have to focus on. This isn't just some regular houseplant. It is a literal symbol of potential that demands constant daily friction just to survive. It requires you to show up and put in the sweat equity every single day without fail."
But then, the uncle presents the second option, the laziness seed. He warns Amir that if he plants this one instead, it's going to grow incredibly fast. But it's going to spread these aggressive, nasty weeds across the entire field and destroy absolutely everything else in its path. And the truly terrifying thing about the laziness seed, it thrives completely on autopilot. It requires absolutely zero effort to take over your entire life. The uncle places both of these seeds right into Amir's hands and tells him point blank that the future of his life depends entirely on which one he decides to care for.
I want to break the fourth wall and pause here for a quick second to ask you, which seed are you nurturing right now? Because Amir looked down at the 2 seeds in his hands and naturally just thought to himself, well, obviously I'm going to plant the ambition seed. I want success. And we all do this, right? We all just naturally assume we're choosing ambition because we crave the end result. We want the fruit, we want the shade, we want the wealth. But simply choosing the seed in your mind is very, very different from actually getting on your knees and planting it in the dirt.
And that harsh reality brings us to section 3, the cost of inaction.
What happens next is just a flawless roadmap of how quickly our good intentions can rot when they aren't backed up by immediate physical action. Because just wanting success, that's not enough to stop the laziness seed from taking root. Let's trace Amir's timeline here. When the morning finally comes for Amir to plant his ambition seed, he wakes up feeling, a little tired. So what does he say? I'll plant it tomorrow. Days pass. Finally, just out of sheer boredom, he carelessly tosses both seeds into the ground, telling himself he'll sort it out and take care of them later. And then weeks go by. He completely forgets about them. He spends his days sleeping in, gossiping in the village, and doing exactly what he always did, merely dreaming about success, while his unattended field just sits there in absolute silence.
And then comes the shocking moment of truth. One day, Amir finally wanders out to check on his field, and he is absolutely horrified. The laziness seed had completely exploded. Thick, aggressive weeds are covering the rich soil, spreading everywhere and literally choking the life out of the land. And what about his prized ambition seed? It was incredibly weak. It was small. It was literally on the verge of dying, because it had received absolutely zero water and zero care. Amir's beautiful golden dream was actively turning into a total nightmare right in front of his eyes.
Right at that moment, his uncle returns, surveys this completely ruined field, and delivers this absolutely devastating truth bomb. Ambition needs care. Laziness grows on its own. He looks at Amir and explains it plainly. This land is your life. Ambition is like a tiny little seed. Without work, it dies. But laziness spreads fast and destroys everything in its path. The uncle points out the harsh, undeniable reality here. Amir wanted to be great, but his own laziness had already stolen his future.
So how do we fix this? Let's move into section 4, watering your own ambition. Because identifying the weeds in our lives is really only the first step. Ripping them out is where the actual transformation happens. As Amir is standing there in his ruined field, he literally falls to his knees. He reaches out and touches the dying ambition seed, and tears just fill his eyes. Because in that incredibly painful moment, he finally grasps what we call the law of the harvest. First off, dreams, they are simply not enough. Sitting around wishing for a golden crop is not going to plant a single seed. Second, only action keeps dreams alive. Third, real ambition demands intense discipline and daily repetitive effort. And finally, the most dangerous law of them all, laziness destroys automatically without any effort whatsoever. That night, Amir couldn't even sleep. He's tossing and turning, whispering to himself that if he didn't change his ways right then and there, laziness was going to own him forever. He realized he needed a completely new formula, broken down into 3 crucial steps. Step 1, pull out the weeds of laziness. The very next morning, before the sun even peeked over the horizon, Amir was out there ripping the weeds out with his bare hands. And it was brutal. His back ached, his hands literally bled, but he refused to stop. Step 2, water your ambition daily. He started genuinely caring for his ambition seed every single day, no matter how tired he was. And step 3, don't wait for tomorrow. He finally stopped delaying the friction of the work. Over the years, entirely because of that relentless daily discipline, that tiny, dying ambition seed slowly grew into a strong plant. And eventually, it blossomed into this mighty tree that provided the exact fruit, the shade, and the wealth Amir had always envisioned for himself. But Amir changed too. He was no longer that lazy dreamer just sitting around in the shade, talking a big game. He actually earned the respect he always craved, becoming known throughout the entire village as the farmer who fought his laziness and won. So as you can probably tell, this story isn't really just about farming, is it? It's the blueprint of our own lives. Every single one of us holds these 2 exact seeds inside of us right now. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Which seed will you water today? Please, whatever you do, do not wait for tomorrow. The longer you wait, the more your dream dies. Start today. Pull up the weeds of laziness and get to work on your ambition. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.